Ο Ρόναλντ Ρέιγκαν κάλεσε τον Τζορτζ Μπους να δώσει νέα διάσταση στην αντιπροεδρία. Μόλις ανέλαβε τη θέση αυτή, ο αντιπρόεδρος Μπους έγινε ο επικεφαλής μιας δύναμης κρούσεως που φρόντιζε για θέματα ασφαλείας σε παγκόσμια βάση. 2 μήνες αργότερα τέθηκε επικεφαλής της ομάδας διευθέτησης κρίσεων του Εθνικού Συμβουλίου Ασφαλείας. Τον επόμενο χρόνο, ο πρόεδρος Ρέιγκαν ζήτησε από τον αντιπρόεδρο Μπους να ηγηθεί μιας άλλης ομάδας κρούσεως ενάντια στα ναρκωτικά που είχαν κατακλείσει την Νότια Φλόριντα. Το 1983, η πείρα και οι ικανότητες του αντιπρόεδρου Μπους έλαμψαν και πάλι όταν αντιμετώπισε την σοβιετική πίεση κατά του ΝΑΤΟ. Λόγω της μεγάλης εμπιστοσύνης που είχε αποκτήσει ο Τζορτζ Μπους, η επανεκλογή του εκ μέρους του Προέδρου Ρέιγκαν δεν ήταν έκπληξη.
When I needed someone of unquestionable leadership, loyalty and skill, there's only one person I could or would choose again, and that's my partner and your Vice President, George Bush.
I accept your nomination and the honor and challenge it represents.
My relationship with the president's very personal. It's built on respect. I like to think it's built on friendship, and certainly I've learned a lot from him. It entails on my part a certain sense of loyalty to the president, but I've never considered that a vice. I consider it a virtue. I've traveled to all 50 states, experiencing a revival of spirit based on the positive achievements. Productivity is up, and the president and I are in firm agreement on the absolute essentiality of keeping America strong. I visited, I think it's 70 foreign countries now, over 800,000 miles, and on each of these trips you meet with the foreign leaders. I carry messages of peace and strength to all countries around the world. I conduct certain special assignments. I remember going to Europe, speaking for the Pershing missile program, the need to either ban all intermediate nuclear force weapons or to deploy our missiles in Europe. And then, of course, seeking better understanding in Africa, in Asia, in the Middle East.
Όταν ρωτήθηκε από πού αντλεί τη δύναμή του, ο αντιπρόεδρος απάντησε.
Religious values, faith, family is of tremendous importance. Major sources of personal strength come from faith and family. And my family has guided me through very tough times, as well as the good. And these fundamentals have never changed with me. And those same factors would guide me in the future just as they have in the past. God's been very, very good to me. There's not a better set of experiences that a public servant could have to prepare him for the toughest job in the world. But I love my country too much. I love my children. I love my 10 grandchildren too much to run for this job if I didn't know in my heart of hearts that I'm the best man for it. Barbara and I were married almost 43 years ago. Since then, we've moved 28 times. This was our first place, half of it, right after World War II, when I was in college, and we were young marrieds. And this is Bar. You can can see why I fell. She went to college and I became a naval aviator. After a stretch of combat in the Pacific, I came home on leave and we were married, January 6th, 1945. The Bushes were there in force. Here are the principal Pierces. That's my father-in-law, probably giving me the once-over. We could have stayed in the East near our families, but we wanted to make our own life. When I got an offer from Texas, Bar and I said, take it. We'd already started our family. First George, then Jeb, Neil, and Marvin. Midland, Texas, our first real neighborhood. The boys kept growing. Bar's been to more Little League games than any living human being. And our daughter, Daro, made the family complete. By then, we'd moved to Houston, where I got into politics, and in 1966 was elected to Congress. Pretty corny picture, but boy, were we happy. 10 years later, when Justice Potter Stewart swore me in as director of the CIA, she showed a little more restraint. In between, I served as our ambassador to the United Nations, and the government moved us to the Waldorf Astoria in New York. Then President Ford sent us to Peking to continue reestablishing relations with China. As I've said, we keep moving, and wherever we go, Bar's always herself. From the White House Easter egg roll to the Mardi Gras, inspecting a plant, showing the flag, admiring the mountains of Wyoming and the Great Wall of China, giving out with a big hello, even when hardly anyone's there, showing her flair for sports, receiving awards. I like the response she gives. I don't deserve it, but I will accept it. Here's Iowa, last July. Who's asking for votes in this parade? And always, when called for, a smile. That's the public Barbara. Underneath is a woman with 2 full-time occupations, doing and loving. On the doing side, our son Neil was dyslexic, terrible learning disability. Probably wouldn't graduate from high school. Bar found the right specialist, gave the right kind of encouragement and discipline. Neil graduated from college, earned his master's degree, and now he's doing just fine, thank you. This experience, which taught us so much about the importance of learning, has led Bar to focus on illiteracy, curing it, stamping it out, her own special cause. One thing she did about it was write this book, The Reminiscences of Our Cocker Spaniel, C. Fred Bush. All of Bar's royalties have gone to literacy organizations. She's even gone on autographing tours to sell more copies. I like her story about the woman who said, "Hello, Mrs. Bush," gave her a book to sign and asked, "Where's Fred?" Bar said he was home in Washington. "What? You mean I've come down here for nothing?" On the loving side, this picture tells it all. That's the house we'll never move out of. A big old place we remodeled in Kennebunkport, Maine. Big enough for the entire Rogues Gallery, our 5 and the 5 they married, all of whom we consider daughters and sons in equal standing, plus their 9, though by now it's 10, plus us. Bar will sit on the rocks with a son and grandson, or play with one who's just learned to walk, or badger me to knock off the paperwork and help show a family friend of wonders of nature. Come January '89, the Bushes will start packing for another move. We've put in a bid for this place, which we hope is 260 million owners will say yes to next November. Interviewers often ask Bar, if you weren't Barbara Bush, would you most like to be? She has one answer, a nurse. But that's her, always wanting to help people. And if I weren't George Bush, who would I most like to be? I have one answer, Barbara Bush's second husband.
Σε κάθε δεκαετία του αιώνα μας, η Αμερική αντιμετώπισε διαφορετικές προκλήσεις και κάθε φορά η ανταμοιβή ήταν η διατήρηση της ειρήνης. Η Αμερική χρειάζεται τέτοιους ανθρώπους για να αντιμετωπίσει τις προκλήσεις.
I volunteered on June 12th, 1942. That was my 18th birthday. I had to wait because I wanted to be a pilot.
Έγινε ο νεότερος πιλότος στο ναυτικό και σε 2 χρόνια έλαβε την διάκριση του υπτάμενου σταυρού για τα ανδραγαθήματά του, ιδιαίτερα σε βομβαρδισμούς νησιών.
And about halfway down, one of these black clusters of anti-aircraft fire must have hit me because the plane went surging forward. I felt this jolt. I could see the fire all around, anti-aircraft. And then suddenly my plane was on fire. I saw a lot of smoke in the cockpit. I could finish my mission. I went on down another couple of thousand feet, released my 400 or 500 pound bombs, and then pulled out to the ocean. So I'm floating around in this raft, paddling, and then all of a sudden saw this conning tower come up and saw the submarine surface. Guy standing up in the top of it taking a picture. We still have the picture of it. It's part of a team effort. It's hard to describe to kids today, but it was part of being together. I think we can pull together, and one of the reasons I'd like to be president is to get that across, to lead, to try to help solve problems in a good way, in a way of saying, let's pull together.
His war experience made him more serious, more caring, more against war, more certain that we should never be caught unprepared again.
Η επόμενη στολή που φόρεσε ο George Bush ήταν διαφορετική. Οι προκλήσεις της δεκαετίας του 50 ήταν πιο απλές. Δουλειά και οικογένεια. Τότε η οικογένεια Bush ξεκίνησε για το Τέξας.
He went the day after he graduated from college, drove down the little red Studebaker, and he wrote and told me that someone said to him, "Say, Bush, did you go to college?" And he said, "Yes, I went to Yale." The guy said, "Oh, too bad."
Μετά από 15 χρόνια στα οποία έφτιαχνε επιχειρήσεις, ο George Bush επέστρεψε στα κοινά και εξέλεγε αντιπρόσωπο στο Κογκρέσο. Ακριβώς την εποχή της ταραγμένης δεκαετίας του 60.
I saw a lot of courage and a lot of strength back then when George Bush refused to worry about threats and stood up for the rights of all Americans to live where they want.
Στην δεκαετία του 70, η χώρα αντιμετώπιζε τις προκλήσεις τη μια μετά την άλλη. Το ίδιο και ο George Bush. Επικεφαλής του Ρεπουμπλικανικού Κόμματος, αντιπρόσωπος στα Ηνωμένα Έθνη, αναπτέρωσε το ηθικό των υπηρεσιών πληροφοριών και έγινε από τους πρώτους απεσταλμένους μας στην Κίνα. Ήταν όλες αυτές οι εμπειρίες που πρόσφερε ο George Bush σαν υποψήφιος του Ρεπουμπλικανικού Κόμματος το 1980.
I, George Herbert Walker Bush.
I picked George Bush to be my vice president because he was strong, principled, and shared my commitment to the preservation of world peace and the expansion of world freedom. And if anything happened to me, well, he was ready to be a great president, a great leader.
Λίγους μήνες αργότερα ο Τζορτζ Μπούς έμαθε όπως λίγοι τι σημαίνει να είσαι μια αναπνοή μακριά από την Προεδρία.
My initial thoughts were about a friend being hurt, being wounded, being seriously in jeopardy. There's a certain stability to our system, and I think experience taught me project that stability. Don't go for the grandstands, don't over-dramatize things. The American people are entitled to know that the system works, that experienced people know how to handle moments of crisis.
The fact that our NATO allies allowed the Pershing missiles into Europe in 1983 gave us the equal footing that we needed to bring the Soviets to the negotiating table. And the man who sold NATO on the plan, against some very tough odds, I might add, was Vice President George Bush.
But it's not only experience in knowing foreign leaders, it's the conviction I have about the United States of America. See, I know from a lot of experience around the world, it's only the United States that's credible enough, strong enough to stand up for human rights around the world, to care when Lech Walesa is struggling to bring a little more freedom to the workers there in that shipyard in Gdansk, or when some freedom fighter someplace is out there struggling to have his country go the democratic way.
George Bush is one of the ablest, one of the strongest men I've known in my lifetime. I trust George Bush. America can trust him too.
Thousands of people see him, and you know, I always loved the time someone said to George, how can you run for president? You don't have any constituency. And George said, well, you know, I've got a great big family and thousands of friends, and that's what he has.
For more than 40 years, George Bush has met every challenge his country and the world have offered up to him. The truth is, the more you learn about George Bush, the more you realize that perhaps no one in this century is better prepared to be President of the United States.